guys, Rachel here. Today we're in the kitchen and I'm going to make a quick pickle. So yesterday I made some eggs and we harvested some Swiss chard from the garden. So instead of putting the stems, the stalks of the Swiss chard into the eggs, I kept these aside because I recently saw a recipe for pickled Swiss chard stems. So I thought, you know what, I've got some random things in the garden at the moment. It's still quite early in the season. I'm not getting large harvests of different things. So quick pickle is a great way, or a fridge pickle is a great way to use up these random things. So I've picked a jar, I've sterilized this in boiling water, and we're just going to use some random bits and pieces that have come from the garden so that we can make a jar of pickles and have a lovely snack. So I've cut these at the length of the jar just to leave a bit of head space. And I've also got a couple of okra, so okra is coming in, but we don't have a huge amount at any one time at the moment, so we can put some okra into our jar. And then we're just going to fill it with other different veggies. So this little baby pumpkin, obviously it didn't get fertilized properly, so it's fallen off the vine, but it's still edible. So I'm going to chop this up. I've got a radish that we harvested. It's actually split, but again, it's still completely fine. I've got some garlic, and I don't think this is going to quite fill my jar, so I've just laid these like this. It's not going to quite fill, so I think what I'll do is I'll go out into the garden. I'm going to pick a turnip as well, and we'll just put all of these different random veggies into our jar, and then we're going to do a quick refrigerator pickle. Okay, so we're out in the garden now, and if we have a look down here, we can see our turnips. So which one are we going to take today? We have our turnip, and I think this is enough to fill that jar, but we've also got these amazing big green stems, so maybe I'll try and pickle a few of the stems as well, but we can use these greens in a dish, saute those and eat them as well. Okay, so we have our chopped radish, our baby pumpkin, some garlic, and our turnip, and I'm just going to shove this into the jar, pack it as tightly as possible, and then we'll make our brine. Before my jar gets too full, I'm actually going to add some flavorings. You can add whatever you want, or you don't have to at all, but I'm going to add some red chili flakes, just like maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. It's completely up to your taste. I'm also going to add some fennel seeds, about a quarter of a teaspoon, and also some black peppercorns. You can add whatever you like, so you can add some turmeric or any flavorings that work for you, or like I said, you don't have to add anything at all. You can just have a plain pickle. So the other day, this melon fell off the trellis before it was ripe, and I've been thinking about what to do. I've had it out in the sun trying to ripen it, and it smells maybe a little bit sweet, but really no. So I've been asking you guys, what should I do with this melon? One of the suggestions was to pickle it. So I've seen recipes before for pickled watermelon rind. This is not a watermelon, this is like a rock melon variety. So I'm going to cut this open while I'm doing a brine and just see what I think about this melon. So inside it looks really lovely. Look at that. Okay. So it wasn't far off ripening. It does smell a little bit sweet. I'm going to cut this up and have a little taste. I've decided I'm going to pickle this. So I've decided to peel with the peeler the outside skin, so the hard outside skin. And I'm going to chop this up, and since I'm doing a batch of brine anyway, let's pickle this and see how it turns out. My melon pickles, I've decided to put some saffron in. So I've just put some saffron in the bottom of the jar. And now I'm going to fill this up with our underripe rock melon. So the brine is a 50-50 mix of water and vinegar. Today I'm going to be using this organic distilled white vinegar, but you can use apple cider vinegar or whatever type of vinegar you have. Best not to use an aged balsamic or anything like that, but just like a regular vinegar. It should be at least 5% acidity, and also some salt. So I've got my pink Himalayan sea salt. And if you like, you can add sugar or not. And usually in my vegetable pickles, I don't add sugar. I enjoy that salty, savory taste. But I think what I'll do is once I fill my jar of vegetables, I'm going to go ahead and add some sugar to my brine for the melon, because it's fruit. Maybe being a sweet pickle with the saffron, I think that will be really nice. So I'm going to measure out my vinegar, and I've got my 2 jars. Now you got to remember that these are both packed quite tightly with vegetables, so I'm not going to need a full jar, but I think I'm going to do about 1 cup of vinegar and 1 cup of water today, and that should be sufficient to fill both of our jars. Okay, so I ended up going a bit less than a cup for each of those, and then I'm going to go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, different recipes, people will tell you different mixes, but generally you do need to make sure that you have some salt, so that this is what actually helps to preserve your vegetables. They're going to be in the fridge, so they're going to be at a low temperature, but definitely the salt helps to preserve them and give them that lovely flavor along with the vinegar. So depending on your preference, you can add more or less. Some of the recipes will say up to a tablespoon. So we've heated our oil, water and salt. The salt is dissolved. I'm just using a funnel here to help me to easily pour this liquid into the jars. So I'm just going to use a ladle and gently ladle this into my jars. Okay, so what started off as a plan to show you guys 1 jar of refrigerator pickles as a way to use some of those random leftover things or small harvests that you might have from the garden has turned into 3 jars. But it really just highlights, I suppose, some of the reasons that I like this recipe. It's super easy and versatile, so you can use basically any veggies that you've got, small amounts, and you can get quite creative and do different things. So we have our original jar, which has the Swiss chard and also some turnip and some radish. I really love the Lebanese style pickled turnips that you get here. So we've got that one with some different mixed herbs in there. We've got the turnip stems and also some melon and some radish. So again, just really random things, but I love that it's a way to use up things that might necessarily just go straight back into the compost otherwise, like these turnip stems. I saute the leaves, but the stems maybe not so much, so I'm hoping that's a nice way to utilize those. I love not wasting any food that comes from the garden. And then also as a creative way to use up this underripe melon, we've got this jar of melon, which I have put a sweet brine and some saffron in there as well. Thanks so much for coming along with me today, guys. I'll put some more specific details down in the notes of the video on the ratios for making this, but I really just get creative because you're putting it in the fridge. You know, it stores for quite a long time. You can start to eat it the next day, but it's better to leave it for at least 3 days before you start to eat it, so all of those flavors really come out. Please share your favorite pickle recipes with me. I'd love to hear your versions of this particular dish. If you haven't already, please do subscribe.